that's going to actually draw down carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Good. Now, we have a lot of ethnic groups in the world, but let's just take the United States. Are there some groups that are more predisposed to recognizing the danger of climate change and taking action, and are there other groups that, you know, are indifferent to it?
Right.
What do you
Again, there's been some great studies nationally, for example, from the Pew Foundation and so on, and it shows very counterintuitive results, and that is that the more education you have, the less likely you'll be to accept that climate change is an urgent issue and that it's man-made, and that communities of color are much more likely to also agree that climate change is something we need to work on.
Color. Blacks? Mulattoes? Is that it? Or
the Pew research includes Asian Americans, Latino, Native Americans, and African American groups. And all of them put together seem to be much more in tune with climate change and willing to do something.
As opposed to what's left, the
Caucasian. To Caucasian communities, correct.
And are we assuming that in general the Caucasians are or were more educated than?
That is one of the assumptions, that that you know, clearly in America there's a lot of discrepancies, and that Caucasian communities on the whole typically have more access to educational levels and attainment.
All right, so what do you think the educated? By the way, I'm the least educated there could be. It's funny. How come the more educated are the least smart when it comes to seeing what's happening?
Well, there's obviously a lot of people trying to understand that, because if we could figure out the key for literacy, education, and getting people to care and do something about this, then I think we would really be able to tackle this problem. But one is that it's a young investigation, so we're still trying to get the information. Again, we know that young people and communities of color are more likely to agree that climate change is an urgent issue that we should address. I think that it's a complicated issue. I think one is that there is a lot of educated folks who also are of political party and religious affiliations that are strongly deniers of climate change. And whether that's cultural, whether that's the media, whatever reason that is, I think that that's a correlation, education and politics and religion. The other thing that I think some of us are investigating is this idea that, you know, you can be educated in the logic, in the numbers, you can hear about models and physics and atmospheric chemistry, but there's another side that actually gets people to care and do something. And that maybe the more educated you are, the more you're looking into uncertainties, or you understand so many nuances of it that you think that you can't deal with this issue and that someone else has to solve the problem. So I think that there's some psychological barriers that psychologists are telling us that, you know, the more you hear about something, the more it seems like it's a dire situation, the more you just want to stick your head in the sand like an ostrich. And so I think that there's a lot of psychology that needs to go into understanding how to reach people. I think as an educator and at a museum that it, you know, hopefully serves a very diverse segment of the population, is that what we're saying is these studies show us that there's not one approach, no silver bullet that's going to get everybody to do something. So what it is that it has to be personalized, it has to be individually. See where the visitor is at, see what they know or what they think they know, see what their misconceptions are and what they're willing to accept, and try to engage them from where they are, instead of thinking that giving them one pamphlet or one website or one experience is going to solve the problem.
All right. Just a short answer, because this is sort of like a self-serving. You know where I am with art. All right, what role does art play in this?
Well, I think art tries to address exactly what we've been talking about, is that there's this disconnect between your brain and your heart, that just because you know stuff doesn't mean that you're going to do something. Whereas I think art from the beginning of human culture has always been what addresses your heart, what addresses your emotion, what engages you, what makes you care and move and motivate you to do something. And so for me is we need to use all of the tools we have. Science and education and art is just yet another tool that we can use to try to get people to care about climate change. So I think that art can give people the hope as well as the bleak aspects in a way that's more palatable, perhaps, than giving them scientific reports that not everyone can understand.
That is touching. It really is. Now, I went to the California Academy of Sciences a while ago, but I also went up to see you folks, but I didn't look at your climate change exhibition. When I did go, it was being remodeled. What is the direction you're taking with your climate change exhibition?
Well, first of all, the fact that you saw the remodel is one of the theoretical approaches, is that we will study what's happening with the visitors, whether they're getting it, and if it doesn't work, we try to fix it. And so what you saw was a remodel so that we can try to draw more visitors in. We were observing that when people got into the exhibit, they got the lesson that climate change was happening and that there were things that they could do about it. But it wasn't that welcoming. So what we did was we rearranged it so that people are now going into the exhibit and they can get the benefit of what we've built in there. The main thing in there is to inspire people to want to learn more and to do something about climate change. Again, it's not filled with factoids that we expect everyone to memorize and go home, because we're not sure that memorizing factoids is the way to get them to do anything. What we've done is packed it in there with surprising information about, for example, wine or food or white river rafting in California. To try to pack it in with information that might be surprising and intriguing to people and get them engaged in the topic of climate change, so they don't just walk by it and think they've known everything because they've seen an inconvenient truth.
Yes. And I think before the show started, you mentioned I could order a meal in that exhibition. Would you elaborate on that?
Well, the exhibition is divided into the global, where we talk about what's happening around the world and solutions that everybody needs to really embrace for us to address climate change. It also has a section on California, which is about what's happening in our wonderful state. We all came here for a reason, and yet we're losing some of those reasons due to climate change. And then the last part, which has the meal that you mentioned, is about what you can do at home. So really bringing it to your daily life. And one of the things we have there is kind of a cafe diner, and you can pick breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and there's a plate of spaghetti and a plate of French fries, and you can decide what you're going to eat. And when you flip it up, it tells you what your carbon footprint is. And the lesson behind that is that we think people can and will make the right decisions in their carbon footprint if they just had the information. If I knew that this plate of spaghetti with meatballs is a worse decision than eating this salad, neither of them are bad decisions. But now I can say, you know what, I can eat a salad and I could actually do something good for me and my health and my hunger, and also do something for the environment.
So the carbon footprint scale is compatible, I think, with both protecting the environment but also good health.
That's right. I mean, I think that it's not just good health, but it's yummier. I mean, not to eat a lot of processed food. That processed food is petroleum, it's been transported, and so on. So I think what we're trying to tell people is that, yes, there are going to be big changes that we need to make for climate change, but they're easy ones, and people just don't have the information. If we can empower our visitors to make the right decision, I believe, I am an optimist, I also think that people want to do the right thing, and that we're confused. So if we give people the right information, they will make the decision, and it doesn't always have to be a sacrifice. You can get a yummy, nutritious meal and still have a low carbon footprint.
So I'm fascinated with this device that was designed, and I can see if I hit the buttons and order a different meal, and I can see the comparisons of the amount of carbon, it's going to affect what I order. I'm not going to go and order big steaks, no doubt. That's right. Or a lot of meat. Mm-hmm. I believe it takes a lot of water and a lot of energy. Is that right?
That's right. And also red meat that comes from large cattle farms and things like that, actually, because a lot of the waste and they're not eating the right food. The cows aren't eating the food that they're meant to. They actually produce a lot of gas, a lot of methane that's actually a greenhouse gas. And so there's so many reasons not to eat processed meat and ones that come from big cattle farms and things like that.
Okay. And all right, so you have some things in